Crooked River, Chapter 39. Indian John was taken away in the Hoadleys' big wagon. I wish I had not turned back toward the window to see it. When my ma died, the minister told me to take one final look before the top of the coffin was nailed, shut by Amos and Pa. Many times since I had regretted seeing her lying in that coffin because it was the picture of her that always came first to my head. The picture of her that I could not forget how her face was the color of marble and turned a bit to the side, and how the piece of lace we pinned around her neck had come loose. It was the same feeling with Indian John. He was let down from the loft by the sheriff, my pa, and 2 other men. Reverend Doan followed them, still praying in his thin, wavering voice. I caught a glimpse of the Indian John's soft moccasins moving past. There was one small flicker of color among the heavy leather boots, and then they were gone. The Hoadleys' big plow horse stood in our dooryard, hitched to a wagon, and Indian John was seated on a pine box coffin in that wagon. His hands were tied behind him, and the bright light of the white blanket over his shoulders looked poor and unkempt. I remember all of the people standing in crowds around the wagon. I stared at them, hardly able to believe how they gathered and grew like a swarm of sickening flies. They were women and children even, with baskets of food and bed quilts for sitting upon. Poor Laura stood with Lorenzo as Pa had ordered. Angry, choking sobs rose in my throat. Even in the darkest part of my mind, I couldn't understand how the whole settlement, and strangers too, could come to gawk and stare at the hanging of a helpless Indian. How could they act as if an Indian's death or anyone's death was nothing but a fancy exhibition? When the rattling drum began again, and the wagon rolled forward, I could hardly see through the haze of tears and fury. Outside the window the crowd of militiamen moved away in a blur of wool coats and muskets, and the women and children wearing their Sunday best trailed behind like a flock of mindless sheep. As the last of the crowd disappeared from sight, I tore open the door of our house. "May the devil take all of you!" I shrieked at the empty place where they had been. "May the devil curse your wicked souls!" And I turned on my heels and ran in the opposite direction with Mercy. Clutching her hand, I ran toward Pa's cornfields like a person gone mad, filled with choking anger, intent on ruining everything I could lay my hands upon. I would make my mean Pa and my brothers sorry for hanging a poor man who hadn't done a thing wrong. Stumbling from furrow to furrow, I began to pull up the green growing blades of corn by the handful. Pa said it was going to be a good year for corn, maybe the best ever, and a real good crop of beans and squash too, everyone said. I ground my bare heels into the sprouts of beans and squash growing among the corn. Mercy thought it was a game, and she followed me, tugging at the plants with her small fingers. But I ran on without paying her any mind, stumbling from one row to the next, trying to pull every bit of green out of the wretched brown earth that belonged to my Pa and my brothers. Let us go back east, poor and hungry as paupers. I stand on the tall hanging place of the Gichi-Mukumang. The odor of death is all around me, and the sound of howling voices roars in my ears. My heart trembles within me. I twist my fingers around the pinch of tobacco in my hand. "Kiche Manitou," I whisper. "I do not want to die here in a foreign place. I do not want to die among a people who are not my own. Circle above me a cloud. Circle above me a cloud." The Gichi-Mukumang talk and talk. They wag their fingers at me and talk and talk. I pray to the spirits. Circle above me a cloud. Circle above me a cloud. The Gichi-Mukumang talk and talk, talk and talk. They talk so much they do not see the clouds. Great piles of black clouds gathering at the edge of the sky.